This is Amelia Cachapero. I'm the Director of Artistic and International Programs at TCG. Thanks so very, very much for your patience and grace as we sorted some things out on the back end, but we're with you, we're ready to go. And we've got some really fabulous colleagues whose work we would like to share with you. A lot of you may already be familiar with TCG's Audience Revolution program. That it's been a deep commitment for quite some time to theaters in a most genuine and authentic way, connecting with audiences and building community, so that the relationships are more than transactional, they're a deeper, more meaningful thing. So that's really the focus of today's panel and session, is to talk about what does it mean to do theater during this time? How do we create deep and meaningful relationships with our community? Not all of the groups that are on today's session are theaters of color. We felt especially important to include folks on this session that can be role models for you all, and maybe inspiration for you to take some of their ideas and take it into your communities as well. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Allison, who is going to be our facilitator for this session. She's the Associate Director of American Theater Magazine. You've probably read lots and lots of her articles, but she's done a lot of coverage around audience revolution and various audience engagement and community development programs. So thank you much for tuning in, Allison.
All right. Hi, everybody. I'm Allison Considine, she, her, hers. I'm really thrilled to be here today. As Amelia said, community engagement and education programs have become one of my beats at American Theater. In 2018, I helped to put together the October issue, which focused all on community engagement. So I'll be sharing a link to that in the chat box. And also community engagement has really been a focus of AT's coverage these past few weeks. So we published a story on how education programs are pivoting to virtual learning for students. The story featured projects happening at Honolulu Theater for Youth, BAM Theater in Chicago, and Cleveland Playhouse. This afternoon, I'm going to begin reporting on a story about how theaters are safely opening their spaces and their lobbies to provide protesters Wi-Fi, bathroom access, and supplies. And as part of our series Dispatches from Quarantine, which has been ongoing since March, Alexander Santiago Girao, the Director of Education at New York Theater Workshop, wrote a piece on how theater education programs and engagement programs can be the key partners in our field's eventual recovery. So I'll share that link as well. But I just wanted to uplift a quote that Alexander included in that piece, which was from Augusto Boal, and said, "Theater is a form of knowledge. It should and can also be a means of transforming society. Theater can help us build our future rather than just waiting for it." Because time is of the essence today, in lieu of a big introduction, I invite you to all continue to share your pronouns, where you're calling from today. And if you like, add in something that's been grounding for you this week, and you can do that in the chat box. All right, so I am happy to introduce Farm Arts Collective and Tannis Kowalchuk, the artistic director, who is going to take the mic next and present some of the projects that they have been doing.
Thank you. Thanks. I'm sorry that we can't be seen, but we have some nice photos to share with everybody. My name's Tannis Kowalchuk, and I'm really pleased to be here with you today to share with you the work that I'm doing in my community with Farm Arts Collective. Joining me today is one of my colleagues, Jess Beveridge, who is here to help with some screen sharing and whatnot. So yeah, we will be using screen sharing. If we could access that, that would be great. Farm Arts Collective makes its home on Will-O-Wisp Organic Farm. This is the land of Lenape. We are particularly close with the Lenape Nation of Pennsylvania and doing some work with them, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. We are a 30-acre solar-powered organic vegetable farm in Damascus, Pennsylvania. We have about 20 people employed here, and we're serving Northeast Pennsylvania, Catskills, and New York City, where we sell at a number of the farmers markets, Union Square, and in Brooklyn. Recently, in the time of the pandemic, our farm has become deeply involved in the food relief efforts in our county and the rural region with pre-existing conditions of poverty and food insecurity is becoming really clear to us. Oh, good, we got some screen sharing capabilities here. Here we go. Let's go to ours. That's our farm. And then we can just go to the food relief if possible. Okay, great. So on Mondays, our farm is dark. And so we are currently distributing weekly food boxes to needy families, including pantry items, our vegetables, milk, eggs, and cheese. And as a longtime theater maker and community organizer and farmer, I formed Farm Arts Collective with my colleagues to help build a creative and healthy rural community through forming pillars of activity. That's farming, theater, food, and ecology. Farm Arts Collective has its own venue on our farm. It's a 30 by 70 greenhouse that we have dedicated to rehearsals and performances, to meals and to workshops. And we like to call our work an agricultural practice because a good number of our members in the ensemble also work as farmers on our farm. And we actually sometimes even call ourselves per-farmers when we're feeling cheeky. Personally, my theater lineage resides in ensemble and devised work. I was a founding member of NACL Theater, and at our upstate home in the Catskills, this is where I began to direct creative placemaking and large-scale community-based projects. For example, here's a piece, shout out to American Theater, the Weather Project, a piece we made about climate change with 75 members in our community, and it was a big project over 2 years. I began farming about a dozen years ago. I saw the possibilities and the responsibilities that I held, not only as a food provider in my community, but as an artistic leader here. And so the opportunity to combine the two amazing vocations of farming and theater birthed Farm Arts Collective. And as a means to provide nourishment of mind, body, and spirit, we're really hoping to deepen our connection to place and each other through our work. So I would like to take a moment right now just to talk quickly about some of the work and the projects that we have undertaken and how we're proceeding this year. Let's just start with our farming work. We present a series called Farm Days Workshops, and these are definitely all farm-based workshops that are presented by local experts in everything from beekeeping to organic soil management, fermentation. And this year, what we decided to do was offer at least the first half of these workshops, which we already began. We've done one via Zoom, much like this. So we're offering these workshops online, and we found that we actually got an incredible response. Our last workshop on organic soil management had 48 people attending, and I don't think we would have gotten that if it was on the farm, quite honestly. Well, maybe we would have, I'm not sure. Usually around this time of year, we do a big farm day tour and a big opening ceremony. Unfortunately, this year, even though it would have attracted a lot of people, no doubt, they love to come and see what's growing, to walk around, eat the food, see what we're working on artistically. We just obviously are not able to do a big crowd like what you're seeing in this screen, and so it's canceled. And last year we had here's a picture of Chief Gentlemoon of the Lenape Nation of Pennsylvania, giving us a blessing at the opening ceremony of Farm Arts Collective, followed by a drum circle and friendship dance. So our relationship with the Lenape Nation of Pennsylvania runs back a couple years ago. In July of 2018, our farm signed a friendship treaty with the tribe. And we have continued to collaborate and support the cultural and spiritual presence of the nation on our land, both in our artistic work and farming work. This year, we are planting a Three Sisters garden with Lenape heirloom seeds, and that garden is going to be featured in our newest performance, which is probably a good segue to move into performance and theater work. For the past number of years, working in my community, farming, raising a child, and trying to make theater, I have begun to train and develop an intergenerational performance ensemble of actors, farmers, musicians, teachers, builders, a really eclectic group, and a collective that is deeply invested in their craft, in each other, and in making challenging performances about important issues. So here we have pictured a show we created called Trees, about the interconnectedness of trees as a metaphor for community. We have another piece called El Viento that we built about immigration and about border crossings, that we took it out into the streets where we live, even playing at our government center in Sullivan County in Monticello. And this summer we are moving, actually I want to talk about Stone Soup. We also have another theater performance called Stone Soup Cooking Class. This was a live cooking performance that had a lot of gigs lined up for it this spring, and we of course lost them all. So we have decided to transform this performance into a video series to help the families and the recipients of the food relief boxes that we're providing at the farm, to help them along with cooking vegetables, giving them recipes, and this all with some like puppetry and music, and the kind of material we're doing in the performance, which is song and just really a lot of fun, as well as loads of recipes demonstrated. Yes, and now finally, this summer we are launching Dream on the Farm. Dream on the Farm is the performance that we have been working towards building for about a year now, and we've been working via Zoom. The ensemble has been working by Zoom since the pandemic began. And tonight we're actually having our first on-farm rehearsal. Everyone will be coming. It's a group of about 12 people who will be coming to the farm for the first time in months. We will wear masks. We will be socially distancing ourselves. And we are planning to show the work as a farm tour for small audience groups of 15 in August. And what we're going to try to do with audience is encourage them to buy group tickets with friends and family members so that they feel comfortable walking with each other. And then what we're building right now is a structure of the performance that's going to be entirely determined by safety measures for both the audience and for the Farm Arts Collective ensemble of the stilt walkers and musicians. So I just wanted to show you a short video of this piece that we're building. This was taken last year, so everyone's obviously not wearing masks. Here we go. Farm Arts Collective is an agricultural hub of creativity based on Will-O-Wisp Organic Farm, a 30-acre organic vegetable farm on the Delaware River in Damascus, Pennsylvania. With activities in performance, food, ecology, and agriculture, we aim to build a sustainable and vibrant agrarian identity and culture. Dream on the Farm is an annual week-long site-specific performance on Will-O-Wisp Organic Farm. It's directed by me in collaboration with the Farm Arts Collective Ensemble and members of the extended community. We're farmers, actors, teachers, contractors, musicians, scientists, landscapers, and everyday people who are creating exciting performances that explore our delicate relationship to our land, to our climate, and to each other. Because it's time for positive change in our world. Through sustainable farming practices, community building, and creative practice, we strive to build a healthy and resilient future. Dream on the Farm looks at the 10,000-year history of this farmland and the endless intersecting ecologies, the myths, the stars, the peoples, plants, and animals, and the soil. And we ask, what is our past and what will our future be? Because like our Lenape predecessors, we want to leave the land better than we found it. So how can we move forward so we can live with more justice, more health, more well-being? What are our dreams for the next 1,000 years? Dream on the Farm invites you to join in and dream for today and tomorrow. So that's all I have prepared. Thank you for the opportunity to share our work with you.
That is so great. I'm so grateful to learn about that because I grew up in Northeast Pennsylvania, and I hope to check out some of your programming. Just in the interest of time, I think we'll hold any questions until the end, and I think we'll move into the next presentation from Jack. So joining us will be Jordana de la Cruz, the co-director, and Alec Duffy, the founder and co-director. Jack, so take it away.
Hey, there we go. Hi, everyone. I'm Alec Duffy. I'm the founder and co-director of Jack. I just want to make sure, Allison, does it seem like my connection is okay?
Yes, it appears to be okay.
Yes. Thank you. So actually, Jack was born out of a TCG conference. I was a grantee several years ago, about 8-9 years ago, and was at the Baltimore conference as a grantee. And out of that conference, basically, I decided with scenic designer Mimi Lian, who's my wife, to start a theater that really was asking the question, how might we be able to create a space for experimental performance that reflects the diversity of the city and that's also threaded into the surrounding neighborhood where neighbors felt at home. And so we found a garage-like space basically in our neighborhood, Clinton Hill, Brooklyn, and gave it a go. Flash forward 8 years, and now we present over 150 performances a year, music, theater, and dance. And we hold community conversations on issues of importance to the neighborhood. And we just moved to our new space right down the street last October. And now Jordana is going to talk a little bit about what we're doing right now.
Great. Hello, everyone. I am Jordana de la Cruz, co-director of Jack with Alec in Brooklyn. So when COVID-19 came about and all the theaters had to shut down for months and, still pending, we at Jack shut down our spring and then summer season, but we still had this empty space. And Jack is a flexible venue, so there's not fixed seating. So we were able to, for instance, move all our chairs out of the way, all risers, so it was just able to be this raw open space. And so here we are with this space and wanting to still serve the community, knowing that we can't serve it through having artists in the space or groups or rentals or anything like that, which the rentals at that point, we would just want to not ask for payment. So then we pretty much put this call out saying, hey, we really want to serve the community. Does anyone have ideas, connections? How can we possibly perhaps hold food for storage or anything like that? And we really wanted to hear what people had to say or suggest. And we actually got a really great response from our own board member, Brittany Williams, who's an activist. And Brittany is a part of a We Keep Us Safe abolitionist network. And so Brittany introduced us to Samantha Johnson, who runs the We Keep Us Safe abolitionist network with the Mutual Aid Fund. And so just to tell you a bit about them, they're initially based out of Brownsville, Brooklyn. They are a POC-led mutual aid group out of the No New Jails NYC movement. So then in 2019, Samantha Johnson started pretty much helping and serving food to those that were most vulnerable or in need. And it started with her inside her building. And then it began to become a larger thing in the neighborhood. So she got lots of volunteers. And right now she serves food for those in Fort Greene and Bed-Stuy areas. So essentially, Samantha and We Keep Us Safe lost their Brownsville location. And so we offered up the space at Jack, which, as I said, was completely open, this space for them to fill. And then within 2 weeks, Samantha and her team of volunteers came in, they brought all their food, they built shelves, they set up tables, and now a few times a week, they actually have the volunteers collect all the food, organize, sort it, and then all the volunteers with cars will take it out and deliver it. And then when Alec and I are able, we'll actually just do the surrounding neighborhood of Jack, so we actually get to provide for our neighbors as well.
Oh, Alec, I think you're on mute.
There we go. Yeah, and so this effort really came out of a long process for us that started around 6 years ago, really during the last set of protests that were coursing through our city in response to the non-indictment of the murder of Eric Garner. It was around that time that I began to think about what Jack could do to be a part of this movement for racial justice. And so initially out of that came some programming ideas. We did a whole 6-month series called Forward Ferguson, which really explored racial justice through the lens of performance, through activism, through workshops, and through conversation. And then after bringing on a co-director, TeAda Wright, the two of us, and that was in 2016, we developed this year-long series called Reparations 365. And through that, really had a chance to meet a lot more activists that were doing work specifically around racial justice in the neighborhood and in Brooklyn. And it was through that we brought Brittany Williams onto the board of Jack. And so it was through these connections that had been really intentionally, these seeds that had really been intentionally sowed over the last 6 years, that we were led to this point of really being able to have already this trust built with this mutual aid group, the leader of which, as Jordana said, was Samantha Johnson, who I had known from being on the community board in Brooklyn for several years. So we already had a relationship. Sorry, I'm just pulling up my notes here. We were asked to speak a little bit also about our training around undoing racism, anti-racist training that we've been doing. That's something that both Jordana and I have participated in, these undoing racism trainings facilitated by the People's Institute for Survival and Beyond, workshops that we highly recommend for those who are interested in pushing the needle forward in their own organizations, in their own personal lives. Also, Jack was part of a convening of 40 arts leaders a few years ago to establish a training specifically for arts leaders in New York. And that convening has led to ongoing meetings and discussions between those art leaders around undoing racism in the artistic and theater community since then. In fact, the most recent meeting was this morning at 9:30. I think that's all we have to say. Jordana, was there anything that you wanted to add? No. Okay.
I just wanted to ask a question about your the We Keep Us Safe program, and if people are in Brooklyn and interested in volunteering or helping to spread the word, how can we do that?
Yeah, they can write us at info@jackny.org. That's info@jackny.org. And we can connect them with a mutual aid group. They're definitely looking mostly for, they are looking primarily for drivers right now, people who can make those deliveries. And just a correction on Josh's chat post, it's info@jackny.org. So there's no dot between Jack and NY.
Well, thank you so much for the work that you're doing. Next, I want to pass it off to Target Margin Theater, and Yousuf, the Associate Artistic Director, is going to lead that conversation.
Oh, you got me. Hey, everyone. Can you see the Sonic the Hedgehog color and chore charts behind me here for making sure you get all your chores done and you get your Sonic toys? Thank you everyone for being here and for showing up. There's so many people in this room and it's really great, and thank you Showing up is one of the things at Target Margin that we say is like 90% of the thing is just being in space and being present for people. And we really hold that value true. When we get into space, especially within our community program, since we've been in Sunset Park, which has been 3 years, the company has been around for 30 and I've been a co-leader of it for 5. We like to shut up and listen. And actually, TCG funded listening sessions through their Audience Revolution program. So just big ups to TCG for putting in that an investment in our work. So over the last year, we were able to work with various community organizations in the neighborhood that we felt like really represented the diversity of Sunset Park. And if you're not familiar with it, Sunset Park is in South Brooklyn. It's like very far away. It mixes industrial sections, residential sections. There's a very big Latinx community and Asian American community, and it's a majority immigrant community, or at least 50% immigrant community. And so we didn't want to make any assumptions when we came into this neighborhood about who our neighbors were or what they wanted from an arts organization. What we wanted to do was show up, shut up, listen, and then after time, take some action. And through the listening sessions, we were able to do that. And it was really an amazing kind of experience. And all of this work in 3 years' time really primed us to be a part of this conversation. When TCG reached out, we had launched a program right after the closing of our theaters and the cancellation of our programs called We Will Care For You, which was a bike messenger mask delivery project that we hatched based on the information that we had about what the needs were in the community and the neighborhood, based on our relationships with the community organizations, and then also what we could do as theater makers and practitioners and what skill sets we had. So I'll pass the baton a little bit to Victoria Linchong, who can talk a little bit more about that project.
Okay, I was prepared to talk about the listening sessions because Mo was really the person that did all of the amazing mask delivery and along with David. But yeah, so the listening sessions, I came on as the community producer in September last year. And my very first task was to organize the listening sessions. As Mo said, it's this beautiful idea that, Target Margin hasn't just moved into a building, they've actually moved into a neighborhood. And what is this neighborhood? Who are the people in this neighborhood? What is their experience in a community, in a theater? What do they want out of a theater? Yeah, thanks to TCG and the Audience Revolution Grant, we were able to partner with 5 different organizations to create these listening sessions. The listening sessions ask these 6 questions of the community. What is theater/performance? How would you define it? What is Sunset Park? What is important or special or valuable about this neighborhood? And what makes Sunset Park a strong community? But these 2 questions were to get them to start thinking about what is theater, what is a neighborhood, what is a community? And then it was, the next question had to do with their own experiences. Talk about a moment in your life when you have seen or made theater. What was that experience like? What was good about it? What was hard about it? And then kind of bringing it all together, the 4th question was, how can theater strengthen or benefit a community? What are some of the things that theater can do for a community? And then whether there were obstacles that get in your way of seeing theaters and what these obstacles might be, whether that's, cost or, too far away, or you don't know, you don't know about it. And then finally it was, what would you like Target Margin to do? Are there ways Target Margin can strengthen and support Sunset Park? And what kind of shows they might want to see. Yeah, it was really fascinating. The groups that we got together with were Center for Family Life, which is, they sort of have this consortium of all of these after school programs throughout the neighborhood. So with them, it was asking questions of a lot of young people. And this did come out of, the listening session came after a Make Your Own Theater Day program. So these kids were already primed to, to think about all these questions and realize that, we're talking about theater in a very radically different way than, perhaps they're used to. So that was one organization. Another organization was Theater of the Oppressed, whom many of you know. And they have a Sunset Park troupe. So we reached out to their Sunset Park troupe. Then there was the Women's Empowerment Coalition of New York. And this was through Somaya El Rauman, a Yemeni American woman that we had met through a community dinner at the local mosque. And this was amazing. It was 18 Muslim women from Yemen largely and Egypt largely, but all over, like, the Middle Eastern area. And so it was amazing to have like these 18 Muslim American women, in the theater, and ask them, what is their experience of theater? And what would they be interested in seeing? I've never had a discussion like that in my life. And I was like, wow, so incredible to hear them talk and to discover, that they all had this interest in Sufi poetry. Who knew, amazing. And this particular kind of dance, which I didn't get a chance to write it down, but there's like this particular kind of dance that they had all experienced. It was this community thing about building a house and then doing a dance with it, which I just loved. And, I'm thinking, wow, can we do something with that? So there was them, and then the Academy of Medical and Public Health Service, which is right around the corner from us. And they have this gorgeous thing that it's, that public health isn't just physical health, which, of course, that is everything, but because we are all inside of our bodies, but also mental health. And so for them, mental health also meant, being part of the community. So they have these language classes and other ways that they can strengthen community. And so we've been working with them quite a bit. And they are primarily Chinese American. So this was our opportunity to bring some of the Chinese community into the theater. And so for them, we had also for the Muslim group, we had native speakers that were part of the listening session. And then we also had childcare. And then the last group was members of the community board. We've been attending these community board meetings every single month. They have this, kind of town hall open session that everybody can attend. So, we've been attending just so we're present, we're there in the community. So it was really fascinating bringing all of these groups into the theater, strengthening, our connections, creating new connections in, like with the Muslim group. And getting to listen to them, listening to them talk, and finding out more about them. So that's what I have to share about Target Margin's listening sessions. How it's really just being from the ground, like Mo says, being present in the neighborhood, seeing what is there and participating, going to those dinners, going to those community board meetings, talking to people on the street. Hi, all of the listening sessions were catered by local restaurants. And those were connections that we've made by just going to those local restaurants and talking to the people that, that own them. And then maybe I will pass it on, after I've just been blabbering on forever, to David Herskovits, our founder and the artistic director, and he can talk a little bit more about the history of Target Margin and its community associations. David? Okay.
You're on mute there.
Or maybe David is on mute and David has to start his video. Oh, David says he's not allowed to unmute. Oh, he might need to be unmuted by the host.
Thank you, host. Thank you, Victoria and Mo. I want to underline everything Mo and Victoria are saying so beautifully and passionately, and I don't want to suck up our time, but I want to hand it over to other people. Maybe I can summarize by repeating two things. From the perspective of the company as a whole, this grows out of those perspectives historically. Any particular grows out of a bigger perspective and a bigger attitude toward the world that we try to cultivate and have for years. And so these have to come from that. We feel that. The idea, the artistic work and the community work are somehow separable is something that we try to set aside. That's not kind of language we try to use to frame this. We do the theater and how do we talk to the community? No, no, no. The artistic work and the community work must be one and the same. And we try to conceive of them that way. That is the work of this mission-driven company. And then I want to repeat what Mo said, which is really true. And we talk about this a lot. And this is why we brought Victoria in to help us do this, which is show up, shut up, and listen. Thank you.
All right, thank you all. I am now going to pass the mic over to TeAda Productions. So Leilani Chan, the founding artistic director, if you want to take it away. Leilani, are you here? Or perhaps Ova or Kristina, who are joining us also from TeAda Productions?
I'm having trouble unmuting.
Oh, no problem.
I finally got unmuted and now I'm trying to, can you turn my video on? I can't seem to do it for myself.
Okay, let's figure that out.
Oh no, I did it. Yay, hey! And also Kristina Wong is here with me. So if we could have her unmuted and video, there she is, rock star. So Ova sends his regards. We are also, you know, co-parenting. So we can't both show up at the same time. One of us has to make sure the kid's doing homework and being fed. So I'm the founding artistic director of TeAda Productions. I'm so excited to see so many names on here that I wish I were seeing in person. We are based in Los Angeles, but we're a nomadic theater. And so we actually have many communities in Minneapolis, Portland, and in Hawaii. We've been doing a lot of work in Hawaii over the last 5 or 6 years, developing our current touring piece, Masters of the Current, which works with the Micronesian community. And we have also gotten an awesome TCG Audience Revolution grant that we are working with the Consortium of Asian American Theaters and Artists to host the National Asian American Theater Conference and Festival in Hawaii. And so through that Audience Rev grant, we've partnered with 3 different organizations and theaters, actually 4 companies in Honolulu, Hawaii, who work with youth and theater. And that work has been amazing. So when COVID hit, we, you know, it took us about a week to kind of get over the shock and then figure out what we were gonna do. We checked in with our various communities in different cities. The first thing we did was bring back a live presentation, well, not a presentation of a recording of a refugee nation, and brought back all of the different Southeast Asian, Laotian communities and academics we've worked with over the last couple decades of developing that work, and did a live stream in honor of Southeast Asian New Year, Lao New Year, Thai New Year, Persian New Year, And that was amazing. And it was one of those things where we're like, why didn't we do this sooner? Because as a nomadic theater, we have a hard time connecting our communities together. People know Refugee Nation as the Laos Southeast Asian show. People know Masters of Current as the Micronesian show. We also had a global taxi driver show where we had a lot of many different communities coming together. So we've been doing our best to pivot and turn this to a positive. And one of the things we got from checking with all our communities was that we wanted to make use of our time, of course, but also the pressure to show up and write your new screenplay or write your new play was also too much. So we wanted to think about how can we create something that is more than just another Zoom call that people would want to show up to. So we came up with this idea of, and I'm going to share my screen, of doing these creative labs. And it will just let me, there we go. This TeAda Talks Creative Lab series, and we invited our artists from Hawaii and Los Angeles. So we were like, this is a great opportunity for our artists in Hawaii to meet with and connect with our artists in LA and across the country. And so we set up these creative lab series where we offered the artists an opportunity to share this experience and explore this new space. And I'm actually going to go backwards through our process. We kind of skipped here. And just talk about first is a thing that hasn't happened yet. On June 14th, we're going to bring back all the artists. It's going to be feedbacks and talking and being in community with each other. So you're all welcome to come to that on June 14th. I'm doing it first because I know I'm going to run out of time. Then the TeAda Talks Creative Lab, we started on May 6th with Kristina Wong. And again, I'm putting her last because I'm going to give her the last half of my time to talk about the Anti-Sewing Squad. And then these are all the beautiful artists. I think only Kahai's there. So this is one of the first times we were all able to see each other and be on screen together. I'm so excited to introduce some of these artists based in Hawaii to these artists that we work with regularly here in LA. Yes, starting backwards. So even last night, we were supposed to have Jade Puga present her piñata time capsule. And the plan was that it was going to be our child-friendly piece. We were going to make coronavirus piñatas and put things in the piñata to remember this time. On Sunday, of course, things changed and we just didn't think it was the right thing to do. So with the help of the board, we pivoted and we decided to postpone the piñata making workshop. And I'm so lucky to have Diane Burby as one of my board members. And last night she just hosted, she said we needed to keep the space and not just cancel. So she hosted a gathering where we all just came and there was no purpose, there was no, there was no end result expected. We just all needed a place to come together. So the facilitators she works with, who do a lot of work with facilitating equity, diversity, inclusion conversations, working in communities, as well as our artists, were able to be there and we just were in community together processing. And that's what we needed right now. Prior to that, we had Ryan Ka'iolelo Sueoka and Annie Lokomai Lipscomb host a beautiful movement and meditation. They're both based in Hawaii, so this was a challenge for them to use the Zoom forum, and it was just beautiful meditation on visual and just being present in this new space. And same with Kristina and Natalie, not Kristina, Carla and Natalie. They also did an incredible meditation via the Zoom, processing what we're going through and finding ways to be centered and whole, so that we really were trying not to make it just another Zoom call. And I felt that every time we left, we had creative time and community time, and I didn't feel drained the way I do with lots of Zoom calls. And then of course we had Kiki and Coco, who I'm so proud of. They came in and they hosted a very sensual. Kristina, can you chime in about watching that one?
That was the most erotic theater experience. There's no nudity, but it was it was very much about how our senses, we're not in theaters anymore, so we can't like share the air with artists. And they did this amazing show where we massaged our own heads and we watched them eat, and it was felt so special. Like I was very cynical about Zoom theater and what it could be and bring up, but there was something very special about these two performers working in separate homes in isolation, creating a performance together for us, and it felt very intimate. So I don't knock on Zoom theater.
And yeah, and looking at Coco as an indigenous drag queen, international extraordinaire, she just was like, oh, we've been working with the visual forever. And I felt like I learned so much from her. And Kiki, it was a very queer, indigenous centered space on Zoom, and it was sensual. And I felt honored to be in that. And I was so proud to be able to present that. And I could talk forever more about that piece. I'd love to share more. But I know that when we get to the Anti-Sewing Squad, there is a lot to talk about. So we opened up this series with Kristina Wong's Sweatshop Overlord. A little bit about my and Kristina Wong's relationship. Kristina was TeAda's first ever intern, and subsequently TeAda's first ever staff member, and subsequently TeAda's first ever staff member who left to become a rock star performance artist. And now she's my overlord. So giving credit to Kristina Wong, she responded faster than any of us. She was out there getting porta potties to the houseless people on the streets of LA. And then she was making masks. And for about a week, I saw her talking about what was going on with people asking about masks. And then finally, I forget what was the tipping point where I was like, fine, she's guilted me into it. But I think, so I pulled out my sewing machine that I hadn't touched in a couple years and started making masks for Kristina Wong. And
Sewing Squad for the people, not for me.
For the people. And for my overlord. But I think it wasn't just, you're right, it wasn't just Kristina, it was this feeling of helplessness and what can I do, and I'm at home and what can I do? So I jumped in with the obsessive rage sewing mask making.
Which is a bit of a social practice in terms of art. So there's a lot of artists, and some of us are not artists, but a lot of us seem to be women of color, and that's not necessarily the design of the group, but that's who stepped up in this particular group to do this work. But it initially started with, oh my God, hospital workers and nurses are showing up with bandanas tied around their faces. And I don't know if anyone was involved in mask making or bothered someone who was overworked for mask making, but there was no supply chain. There was no elastic, there was no fabric. Leilani actually cut up her hula costumes from a halau she danced with 20 years ago to make masks for the Navajo Nation, which to me is like so symbolic and profound. We also secured the donation of robes from a monastery, a Lao monastery in the Bay Area, which went into making masks because it was just that, it's that difficult to find the materials to make these things. And when I look at the different, so Leilani's holding up the masks, those are made of mask robes. And those actually went to Minneapolis to our friends there who are going to pass them out to peaceful protesters on the streets. So yeah, we weren't supposed to get this far where we have a logo and we're still sewing 2 months later. But as it turns out, there are all these communities the federal government has left behind, and they are indigenous communities, they're undocumented, they are very poor communities of color who have absolutely no protection. Like somehow the military was able to turn LA Convention Center into an overnight base for the National Guard, but we can't get the Navajo Nation face shields, you know? So it's just like, what is happening? So I'm just sort of wowed because when I look at the other artists who've stepped up to make masks, it's a lot of theater makers, it's a lot of people, like Leilani's sewing knowledge is from what, costuming class, right? I'm like home ec in middle school, and that's who saved your ass. That's who's making your medical equipment. Theater artists. Because that's this country, and they're making it out of old hula costumes and monk robes.
There you go. This side is the old hula costume.
But I am seeing, so a lot of our mask making for these communities has shifted into, we now do relief missions. We were originally just sending vans of sewing supplies, but there's so much room in the vans that we began to put hygiene supplies to the Navajo Nation so they could do hand washing stations. And but a lot of the communication and the ways that we've worked before as TeAda with communities of color is sort of the same skills we're using now, and asking communities what they need in terms of relief supplies, masks and hygiene supplies. And I'm sort of grateful that this has become a way for us as aunties to communicate with each other, to have each other, and to sustain this is not, I don't know when you're working this many hours over a sewing machine if it's still creative, but that is what this space has been for the aunties who are sewing. It has been a creative space of healing and feeling useful and feeling of service in terms of providing protection for some of these communities.
Yeah, and Kristina kicked off our labs, and we were like, okay, Kristina, because she kept talking about on Facebook, like, I have a show. And I was like, okay, fine, do 5-10 minutes, whatever you want to experiment. And we ended up having over 100 people RSVP, which is the limit of our Zoom account. So we went to doing the live feed for YouTube, and it was a great opportunity for Kristina to just test out some work. And she ended up testing out like 30, 45 minutes.
Living diary of this whole experience. So.
And it was amazing. And now she's booking it everywhere. And I think, are you presenting today later at TCG?
No, that was postponed.
Oh, that's postponed. So now she's got a gig of a Zoom performance that she's booking around. And the other thing I want to just add out as the key and secret to this work is remember your technical directors. So Max Miliano is a technical director and stage manager for many touring companies, including TeAda's. And the same skill set as QLab transfers to a lot of the broadcasting software and shareware out there. And without him, with his work, it's elevated Kristina's performance in another way. So I just want to throw that out there. I know we have to wrap up, but that is what we've learned in this process. Cool.
Thank you all. This has been such a hard week. It's been a hard couple weeks and months. It's just really, really inspiring and heartening to hear all of the projects that continue on within the communities. It's really invaluable. So thank you all for the work that you're doing. I wish we had all afternoon to kind of talk more about how you're making these all happen. But we do sadly need to end the session today. But thank you all for being here. I encourage you all to continue these conversations over on Mighty Networks, and I look forward to hearing about all the projects that continue on.